The word Hachishakusama translates to 8-foot tall woman in Japanese. It refers to a creepy Japanese ghost legend you may know about. You probably know of the Slender Man, but imagine an 8-foot tall, slender woman. We hear a lot about many scary and sometimes creepy urban legends from around the world. But this 8-foot tall Japanese urban legend is something that will give you chills as you get to know about it. Hachishakusama is not the usual John Doe of urban legends. We imagine something human-like. It is an 8-foot tall woman lurking in the darkness, making the scariest sound one can hear, waiting to abduct children without bothering to prey on adults. The appearance can vary from a weathered hag to a young, attractive woman, but always inhuman in terms of height. This creepy Japanese legend is known for luring little kids out of their home by sometimes calling their name in a familiar voice and sometimes crying for help. Hachishakusama is considered to be a witch lurking in the darkness. It's believed that it sometimes waits for days or months before luring the child out. But the scary sound is something like po, 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 in a deep masculine voice. It is said the creature was imprisoned years ago by monks using 4 small Jizo statues placed in 4 directions surrounding a ruined building on the outskirts, hidden from anybody. But one of the statues broke and gave Hachishakusama an opportunity to escape from her prison that she was kept in for years. Hachishakusama then took the form of an 8-foot tall woman wearing a white summer dress with a wide brim hat. Eyewitnesses say she is either a wretched hag or a very attractive young woman. The story of the little Japanese boy. This is possibly the only narrated story of a survivor. This story is from a small village in Japan, where a young boy was living with his grandparents at the age of 8 years old. In the summer of 2008, he was going to visit his grandparents, as his parents would take him during the summer vacation. On a fine day, when the grandparents were inside the house, the boy decided to play outside in the backyard, which was surrounded by long hedges all around. Suddenly, a strange sound caught the boy's attention, coming from behind the hedges. It went po, po, po. The boy, being surprised by the weird noise, tried to figure out where it was actually coming from. Looking around, he noticed a straw hat above the hedges, and that's when he realizes the hat wasn't resting on the hedges. It was actually moving behind it. Suddenly, that hat stopped moving, and through a gap in the hedges, he came to see a face peering through. It was a woman, but strangely, the hedges were so high that any normal human would not be visible unless they were extraordinarily tall. The boy is in shock now, wondering what this figure could be. But soon this strange noise started to dissipate, fading into the distance, along with the face that he saw between the hedges. For a moment, the boy couldn't imagine anything being that tall. The boy then, very confused and shaken up, returned back to the house and sat down at the table where his grandparents were drinking tea. He started telling them about what he had just witnessed. But his grandparents didn't seem to be paying any attention until he told them about the sound it made. They both froze, and their eyes grew wide in shock. Then Grandma ended up putting her hands over her mouth. Grandpa's face became pale and serious. He grabbed the boy in his arms, bombarding him with questions like, how tall was it? Where did you see her? What did you do? Being terrified, the boy tried to answer everything he could, but this wasn't enough for his grandpa. Still in shock, he ran and grabbed the phone, called somebody, and rushed over to the house. For a while, the boy, without a clue, asked his grandpa, "Grandma, what is happening?" Grandma started telling him about the strange figure he just saw. "There is something dangerous abducting children in this area," she said. "It's called Hachishakusama." She continued to tell him about the creature. It would take the appearance of an extremely tall woman, but made scary, deep, masculine words and sounds with its voice. A long time ago, it was captured by monks and imprisoned with statues, 4 statues, which were placed in the east, west, north, and south corners of the building to trap it inside. But unfortunately, one of the statues had broken. Thus it is free again. The last time this urban legend has appeared in the village was 15 years ago. She told him that anybody who sees this creature, they are all destined to die within a few days. This made him unsure what to believe or not believe. As soon as his grandpa came back, along with an old woman named Kaysen, the boy was then taken to one of the rooms in the house. Then she began to cover all the windows with papers having ancient ruins written all over them. She also placed 4 bowls filled with salt, almost overflowing, on the 4 corners of the room. A statue of Buddha was placed in the middle of the room. Kaizen, upon finishing her work, called the boy into the room and told him, "Soon the sun will be setting, so listen clearly. You must stay in this room until morning, no matter what. Not even to use the restroom," as she placed a bucket in his hands. She knew that the creature could lure out children by mimicking the voice of their family members. Then all the adults had left the room. He quickly locked the room behind him, trying to take his mind off everything that was going on. The boy started watching TV before falling asleep. A tapping sound on the window woke the boy up around 1 a.m., followed by a knocking on the door. Then the voice of his grandfather. "Are you okay in there? If you want, I can come inside," he said. Hearing his grandfather's voice was such a relief for the boy. Then he got up to open the door, but just before sliding the door open, he felt a strange feeling in the gut of his stomach. Then he realized there was no shadow at all on the door, as the door was a sliding panel. When someone is behind it, you will be able to visibly see their figure, their shadow. Completely terrified at this point of who or what could be behind the door, the boy turned back, and he saw the salt in the 4 bowls turn black. Then started the sounds. Po, po, po. Then the tapping on the window continued. Completely scared, the boy knelt down before the statue of Buddha and started to pray, closing his eyes in fear. After a while, the knocking stopped. Checking his watch, he realized it was 7:30 in the morning, and he was safe to go out now. He slowly opened the door and rushed to his grandparents. All three of them quickly got in the van and headed straight to the airport. His grandfather couldn't take any more risk, then decided to send him back to his parents, as a legend suggests. There were others who survived too. As long as they didn't step their foot back in Japan, he was not allowed to visit his grandparents. 4 years later, after the incident, when his grandpa got sick, he even refused to let the boy visit him, even instructing him to not be able to go to his grandfather's funeral. Almost 10 years later, his grandfather died. The boy received a call from his grandmother telling about the unfortunate news of the death of his grandfather. As he had cancer, the boy could not take it anymore and told his grandmother that he was going to visit for a final goodbye to his grandfather, and his family agreed. Before the boy could end the call, he heard a familiar voice. Po. Po.